we be thinking about this problem at a macro level?
Thank you so much for convening this conversation. Dr. Tina's had a huge impact on me, and I really think this is important to have a long form, nuanced conversation that goes over the micro and the macro. And as you said, I've been really focused on the macro. I think there's some really important macro considerations that patients need to know before thinking about Ozempic. And that is that this is really about the median American and the median American child. 94% of the country is metabolically dysfunctional. Something has happened all at once, as you point out so well in Food Fix. Just looking at kids, 20 to 25% of young adults having fatty liver disease, 50% of young adults being overweight or obese. By some counts, 33% of young adults having prediabetes. It's a moral stain on our country where I think through very observable and very definable situations, we're poisoning our kids. We're poisoning them chiefly by food, the rise of ultra-processed food, which was close to 0% 100 years ago, and now up to 70% of a child's diet by some counts.
It all started with Crisco in 1911?
Yeah, and it started with good intentions after World War II to kind of feed the world and make ultra-processed food, but it's been weaponized. And, food companies now are one of the largest employers of scientists to weaponize our food against us. And I can't go to a playground with my 2-year-old without seeing almost every kid there, drinking Coke, drinking sugary drinks. So fundamentally, this is a question about what is the solve for this metabolic health crisis and the different branches on that crisis of the diabetes crisis, the heart disease crisis, the obesity crisis. And I think my main point is that the medicalization siloing of chronic disease has been an utter failure.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying a doctor shouldn't prescribe a statin or metformin if that's the case and that's the determination, but the overall default to isolating and medicalizing a chronic condition has been bad. The world would be a better place if we actually didn't go this route of seeing heart disease as a statin deficiency, seeing diabetes as a metformin deficiency, seeing high blood pressure as ACE inhibitor deficiency, seeing depression as SSRI deficiency. My argument, I actually think the data is clear on this, if those drugs were...
You mean depression is not a Prozac deficiency?
Yeah. Exactly. And my argument, I think the data is clear on this. If you actually took those drugs off the table, if they didn't exist, and the medical system actually asked, what's the root cause of these conditions? What should we spend $4.5 trillion on actually solving these conditions? It would actually go to the things you talk about core lifestyle habits. And the issue and what the obesity epidemic represents, with 80% of American adults now being overweight or obese, is that we really have a dirty tank. We have fundamentally lost our way in crony capitalism and rigging the system, basically poisoning the American people. And is that an Ozempic deficiency? Should we do more of the same in the most pronounced chronic condition for the median American, for the median child? Mm-hmm. Should we be prescribing the Ozempic? And I really think when you reel that back, the answer is no, right? I'm not talking about, a 400-pound, extremely diabetic person. That's between the patient and the doctor. But when the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying that the average 12-year-old should be on Ozempic, when this is being pushed on 6-year-olds who have an obesity crisis, that gets over 20% of kids in the U.S. have childhood obesity. In Japan, it's 3 to 4%, right? We have unique dynamics happening in America, and it completely takes our eye off the ball to say that's an Ozempic deficiency. Novo Nordisk right now is the 12th most valuable company in the world. It's the most valuable company in Europe.
It's the biggest contributor to GDP in Denmark, the country that...
But interestingly, their revenue and profits aren't coming from Europe.
Is it true they don't allow Ozempic to be sold in Denmark? Is that true?
It's not the standard of care. First off, in Denmark, it's under $100, and they are making all their money off Americans, where they charge $1,600 to $1,800
a month.
They're taking advantage of Americans, but it's not the standard of care in Denmark. I was in Denmark last year. They have sound food policies. People are biking, walking around. And actually, if you have obesity, the doctor is able to prescribe exercise and a keto diet that's subsidized by the government. Ozempic is not the standard of care for obesity. When you actually look at the stock analysis, 80 to 90% of profit expectations are coming from the United States. They're taking advantage of the United States. So we have a dirty fish tank, right? The problem is not an Ozempic deficiency. The problem is, when are we going to say we're going to stop poisoning kids?
They're talking about using this in kids, but we're filling the schools with ultra-processed junk food that these kids are eating for lunch, and that the school lunch program is so messed up that these kids aren't getting healthy, nutritious food that's helping them be metabolically healthy or mentally healthy.
Right. So then we look at, okay, how would he use this for? The instructions on Ozempic is as a lifetime drug. It actually, there was a warning. So let's just look at what Novo Nordisk says. They said this is not a quick use. This is not for a kickstart. This is a lifetime drug, and there's actually some serious warnings if you go off the drug and gain the weight back, and actually unknown metabolic effects. So that's what Novo Nordisk says. And they're actually saying, with the help of the American Academy of Pediatrics, which early in my career I helped pay by pharma companies, as a subsidiary of pharma companies, this Danish company is one of the top contributors to it. They're saying that a 12-year-old, it should be the first line of defense. It shouldn't be after dietary interventions fail. It says if a 12-year-old gains a little bit of weight, put them on this drug for life.
So the American Academy of Pediatrics doesn't have first line